Good morning, Richard.
Good morning.
Can you hear me
Thank
okay?
you. We can, yes. Yeah, thank you for being here today. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, so it is 9 o'clock. So Rich, if you don't mind starting the recording.
I'm just going to say, as was mentioned.
Great. So we will go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And we have a pretty packed agenda for this morning. So I do want to get started right away, right on time.
Yeah, I guess we'll get, we'll get started if we can, start with the Pledge of Allegiance for the people at least, are here. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just working off the agenda, a roll call. Ray Rudzinski, City of Bristol.
Yeah, so I see Sheila for Ansonia. Anyone from Beacon Falls? All right.
I'll
Bethlehem?
cover Seymour too as well, Rich.
Got it. Thank you.
Unless Brian's here, I don't know. I don't think so. Okay.
Yeah, unless he's in the room. I don't see him on the call yet. Anyone from Bethlehem?
Yep, Steve Mance, Director of Public Works.
Great. Good morning. Ray, I see you're here. Cheshire?
Dan Bombero.
Good morning. City of Derby? Let's see, Middlebury. Anyone from Middlebury? All right. I saw Jim call in from Naugatuck. Anyone from Oxford? The town of Plymouth? I know Mayor Bob is here, and Sheila will cover Seymour. Anyone from Shelton? Southbury?
Jerry Lukowski, Public Works Director.
Morning, Jerry. Anyone from Thomaston? Waterbury? Watertown?
Yes, Paul Benevich, Town Engineer.
Good morning. Anyone from Wolcott? And then lastly, anyone from Woodbury? Okay. Well, that just gets by, but it does give us a quorum for the meeting.
And then moving on to a public comment, general public. Anybody from the general public here?
There were no requests for public comment either.
The approval of meeting minutes, or is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of March 2nd? Watertown make that motion?
Yes, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second, Sheila.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain,
Motion
I wasn't there.
A transportation planning, LOTCIP, Mark and Karen.
Yes. Did I see Mark was in the room?
Yeah, my 9 o'clock call got canceled, so I'm here. But you can take over since you put together the chart.
Yeah. All right. So we just want to do our quick standard update on the LOTCIP program. As things stand right now, we have 38 total projects, either completed or in the works. We have a couple that have moved to construction or are getting ready to move into construction this year. The program's total value at the moment is just a little bit less than $112 million. And we're pretty close to 30 million in completed projects. And we are looking forward to likely this summer having actually awarded 75 million to 2 towns to start construction on projects. So we think, we're certainly still moving through the program pretty quickly, and we're excited about the work that's getting done. If we take a quick look at our the actual allocation versus program funding, nothing's really changed here. As we've been talking about, somewhere around the beginning of fiscal 2024, we cross over just a little bit, and we kind of bounce back and forth between having available funds and being slightly over programmed. As we always say, right, we'd like to be a little bit on the over programmed side in case projects get delayed or pushed back or budgets come in under. But just something that we're keeping a very close eye on as we approach our total allocation. We may have to start changing some of the programming timelines or seeing what potential options the DOT has for us in terms of getting projects done as quickly as possible.
And just to continue with that, the one thing that we noticed from this chart is we do sort of go into the red and it's for a short period of time because of the way the money is allocated by fiscal year. We'll probably receive our the following year's allocation. We're looking to go into the sort of the red in the summer, and by the fall we'd be back into a black condition where we have some available balance. So, but it's something we're keeping an eye on.
And important to note, we do still have plenty of funding for projects once we get into the summer of 2025 or the start of fiscal 26. So as we always say, we are still actively accepting new projects. We're still encouraging towns to be thinking about developing and submitting applications.
Okay.
And then we will
Thank
go
you
from
for the-
here.
Thank you for the-
Continuing with LOTCIP. Oh, go ahead, Ray. Sorry.
Thanks, for the report introduction. To the DOT, I believe, is on the line talking about, LOTCIP.
Yes, yeah. So we have Vitalij, who I'm sure many of you have worked with in his previous role within the LOTCIP program. He'll be stepping up into a bigger spot with the program administration with DOT, and so we've asked him here this morning to introduce himself and talk just a little bit about the program.
Is he on the line?
Yes. Yeah, Vitalij,
Oh, good morning. So is it our time?
it's your time.
Okay, excellent. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Vitalij Staroverov. I am a project manager with Connecticut Department of Transportation, and I work within a LOTCIP group. With me here today is Hugh Hayward. He's a principal engineer. He is here to answer any questions that you guys may have in addition to what we already received, as well as Bill Grant, project manager as well with DOT. Just a little bit about myself. So I've been with the department for 15 years now. My, bigger part of my career, about 13 years I spent with design, working on state highways, conducting, improvements on state highways, building roundabouts, retaining walls, culverts, trails. Looking at the map right now in NHCOG Valley, COG. So probably most of my work been done in Cheshire. I'm not sure if anybody here is from Cheshire today. I've done a lot of work with trails, particularly with Farmington Canal Heritage Trail, where we build bridges and all sorts of interesting features. Literally walked every inch of those trails as designing them. So I know many people come from different states just simply to visit and enjoy the trails that we have there. So today, I've been in the past 2 years now with LOTCIP, been administering projects for municipalities and focusing on how to improve the process, answering questions, and just really trying to get as many projects on the street as possible in the most efficient way we can, as a state basically allows us to do so. Richard, I know that you sent me a number of questions. Do you want me to sort of start answering them as you provided the questions, or how would you like to proceed?
Let's see, actually, Ray, what would you like to do? Do you want to open it up, open the floor, or do you want to have those couple of questions answered first?
I guess if you can just, go through if Rich did provide you questions, beforehand, if you can kind of, recap those, just for the benefit of everybody, if you can kind of state what the question is and then, respond to it accordingly?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the questions as you sent me in the order, and I will try to do my best to answer them. There certainly could be a level of discussion here, and Bill and Hugh from LOTCIP will jump in and provide more detail as needs to be, because these guys been here since the inception of the program, and they designed this program to a T in a very creative and efficient way. So the first question that we received has to do with the Rubber Avenue project in Naugatuck, and the question states, and as I read, given the resolution with Naugatuck and the Rubber Avenue project, can you speak a bit about the requirements from a municipality to include certain streetscaping and complete street features in non-downtown areas? So just a little bit of a background. So this question came up, has to do with some of the amenities that were initially introduced with the project. And I know we've gone a couple of times back and forth with the borough of Naugatuck, as well as with NVCOG, just to figure out what's reasonable, what's not, how does the department looks at certain level of amenities and how we include them. So there's just really, it's a kind of an expanded discussion here. So, but I'll start with saying that typically our practice, when we're looking at areas such as, village and downtown areas, we're trying to focus on sort of a reasonable level of amenities, because our biggest goal is to focus on transportation related activities. Right. So transportation that's the business we're in. That's what we're focusing on. So now, clearly, examples such as Main Street, downtown area, we clearly know that certain level of amenities is reasonable, and those items are eligible. Now, it gets a little bit kind of difficult to identify in the gray areas. Let's say if projects might be on the outskirts of the downtown, and that's the time when we end up looking at municipal mapping. Let's say we try to find locations and see how municipality deems that area over downtown. Another component we also address is we look for details. Okay, if there's no mapping, maybe we look at the town details and standards. So we ask ourselves a question. So let's say if a developer were to come in and wanted to build, let's say an avenue or a street for, do certain level of improvements, build a project within the town, what level of standards the developer will be held to? Okay, because if the municipality were to be spending their own funds, what level of standard of details, amenities, the municipality would allow and would pay for it? So we're kind of looking at the standards that municipalities have adapted as their own. Now, LOTCIP is, as we know, is 100% state funding for construction phase of the program. And what we do is it's fairly largely governed by consistency across all 9 COGs that we work with, because we want to make sure that the standards apply the same way in CROG as in NVCOG, as WestCOG and metropolitan area. So we want to make sure that there's a consistency across all of the COGs. Now, one of the examples, sometimes we end up having discussions with municipalities on maybe we need to establish certain design of standards for the town. And frequently when we've had those discussions, municipalities been very receptive, because for the longest time, they've been telling us we've been trying to develop some kind of standards, and this project actually helps us to streamline our process and actually get going on establishing those standards. Maybe it's sometimes it has to go through the approval of the town council in some ways, but we're looking something that is being documented and hopefully even published on the town website that we can simply refer to and say, yep, these are the town standards. We can certainly participate. Now, generally, we don't have a written policy that would govern street amenities. However, certain features are clear to pay for. If it comes to, let's say, in the downtown area, it's things like a granite curbing, maybe it's a decorative lighting, bus shelters, decorative crosswalks. But there are things that are not considered to be transportation amenities, things like maybe an artwork or a fountain or some sort of a sculpture that the town wants to put in. And we've had municipalities who have been interested in putting those items in the project because it establishes some sort of aesthetics for the town, and it's perfectly acceptable. But again, we are looking at what's the reasonable level of amenities for transportation improvements. Now, we don't prohibit towns from including those items in the project. In fact, we just even encourage them in a way where we just say it's going to be just a non-participating. If town wants to participate and include some sort of a feature that helps them to beautify the area, we're perfectly okay with that. But it's just going to be a non-participating item when it comes to LOTCIP. Something that we keep in mind, if we allow too many amenities, that it actually ends up sort of diluting the program, and it takes focus from providing transportation-related amenities to allowing more kind of a beautification in the area. So, I know the example was with Naugatuck Rubber Avenue. We were looking at probably about $1 million worth of amenities, and it's a significant dollar value, right? So that means that maybe some municipalities could have a transportation project that could fit that dollar amount and would possibly be taken away. But we certainly recognize all of the COGs have sort of authority in recognizing which projects they desire to move forward and to participate in LOTCIP. But that's sort of like a general overview of how we view amenities and decisions that we make internally here. And hopefully maybe it describes a little bit more to NVCOG of what process we go through, but we're certainly open for ideas and improvements to make things more efficient, but also we want to make sure there's a consistency across all the COGs from our standpoint. I'm not sure if there are any questions to address this.
I don't know if it results in any follow up, but for one, certainly understand the DOT's position. And you have a series of questions. What was the next one?
The next question was, let me get to it. Okay, so it has to do with audits. So now I know this has been a sore subject, not only for COGS, but certainly for us internally as well. So the question is, what does the process look like going forward to audit projects that are completed, right? So we have a number of projects that have been completed across all the COGs, and there's still audit that needs to be done. So once audit begins, how long after completion should the town expect to have before the audit begins? So now, so recently, with our new revised LOTCIP guidelines, which I think is dated 2021, end of the year, I believe November version, that should help municipalities to have a little bit more level of detail and information. In fact, we actually try to simplify that needs to be submitted to the department to successfully complete the audit. Okay, so there's an expenditure summary form that was removed that we had in initial guidelines, as those forms they were not being submitted consistently to us, and there wasn't really helping as much. Now, on the other side, our external audits unit at the DOT, they have a very large workload. They both on the federal side as well on the state side. And there have been some discussions internally here. Again, it's kind of above our level. It's a different unit. I've tried to streamline some of those processes they have in place and investigate maybe if there's a way of making things faster to process the audit. But to our knowledge today, they haven't really had a good resolution of how to make it happen. Now, we also had some discussions perhaps in our LOTCIP group of how can we help municipalities to, if there's an outstanding maybe excess of funds that was left with the town and they want to be able to return back to DOT, in other words, to put it back into the bank of a COG, we can certainly open for more discussions and, possibly sending it, according to municipality accounting, maybe sending a check to us. Yeah, but we want to do is we want to go through this process, maybe test it out if NVCOG is open to some ideas, and if there's outstanding balances that I may not be aware of right now within certain municipalities, to use our process that's outlined within the guidelines, and we will see if we can prioritize maybe on our end and work with our external audit unit to make it happen, just to see how this process can be improved. But I know maybe doesn't give you a complete response to your question as far as a timeline, because we have a lot of projects, even on the state side, that's been really behind when it comes to external audits. And that's why I cannot give you a timeline for that, unfortunately.
I guess, from my perspective, and this is just a general, comment, that, certainly when, LOTCIP was originally, created, it was, promoted as, really a expedited, project. Certainly there is a bureaucratic component to it. I also understand, the need for checks and balances, where that line is. I, for one, appreciate the fact that DOT at least looks at it periodically and tries to streamline it to make sure it doesn't get over, bureaucratic. That's not just on the financial side, that's, across the entire spectrum.
So, hi folks, this is Hugh Hayward from DOT, and I'm not sure if Mark Nielsen is in the room.
Yeah, I'm here, Hugh. How you
Hey,
doing?
Mark, on that topic, if I remember correctly, when we met at our annual LOTCIP meeting, I think it was in September, right, to go over the financial plan, did you guys not have a particular project that had a balance in it? It was completed in construction, and you wanted to return that balance to your account so you could fund other work.
Yeah, I guess that it was at that meeting, I think, that sort of triggered this discussion. Because we've sort of looked back, and it looks like we have about, Rich may correct me, but it's like $1.5 million that's sort of hanging out there from completed projects that, were, underspent. But none of the projects have gone through a final closeout so that those funds can then be returned back to the program. And what sort of triggered this is in Prospect, the mayor asked the question, they were probably going to underspend, what was allocated for their project. He wanted to know what to do with the money. And, that's when we started having this conversation, because I think the program is going on 7 years now?
8 years.
And 8 years. And, we haven't had one project closed out entirely, because I think Southbury was the first in our region. And I think they still have, unexpended funds. So again, I think there is something we need, we need to talk about, if we can just, because towns are hanging on to these funds, and, it's the concern is that, hopefully, they are maintained in a separate account somewhere. But, hanging those on for 7, 8 years, can get a little bit onerous. So, that's what sort of triggered the conversation.
Yeah. So taking off on that, what I wanted to ask you is, could you kind of send us a rough summary of the projects that are in need of audit and what the outstanding rough dollar amounts are? They could be returned, because one of the things we talked about here at the agency behind the scenes is maybe we cherry pick one of those jobs and push it through the new process, that Vitalij talked about in our most recent edition of LOTCIP guidelines, is kind of a pilot to just test it and have the net benefit of getting some money back into your account.
Yeah, like I said, we have sort of already started going through that process of, tabulating, what might, because I think we've had 13 projects completed, and I think only one actually went over what was allocated. All the other projects, underspent basically, because it's low bid plus the 20%.
Yep.
So typically they haven't spent, they haven't gone into that 20% entirely. So we can get that accounting to you pretty quickly. And yeah, let's have a conversation, see, if we want to be the guinea pig as it was, we're more than happy to help.
Yeah, if you could do that, because we'd like to test it, because we recognize,
Okay.
as Vitalij alluded to, we've got to focus on the audit end of things.
So not to get too much in the weeds, but Bristol had, one that was video detection, relatively small amount relative.
And that was
to-
a very early one.
Yeah, relative
Yeah.
to small one. So honestly, that money's still sitting there. Are you saying there's no mechanism for Bristol to give the money back?
No, it's not that there's
That's what
no
they're trying to
mechanism.
work on.
It's just we've changed our guidance most recently in the guidelines to kind of streamline the auditing process. And we want to push some projects through that new process to get the money back.
Well, I think one thing I can do is maybe summarize what the towns who have completed projects, send out a notice to all of those municipalities and say, okay, this is what we need to do to start this process, because that's something where, even I've been, we're so focused on getting the other projects going that I haven't focused on the ones that have been completed. So I can, we can work on getting something out to all of those municipalities who need, some guidance on what they need to submit at the end of the project.
Yep. Okay, so we'll look for something new, Mark.
So this is Jim Stewart. Could the COG provide estimates to the town as well? And I don't see any reason why if the COG were to tell us the approximate amounts and how we could return them to the DOT, why we couldn't do that, or at least see what we agree with and return that money in advance to an audit. I mean, we're just holding on to the money at this point anyway, and I keep talking to my finance people and making sure that they're not including that in any other projects, and just so I make sure I have that money, years in advance. I'd prefer to return the money in advance to an audit.
And Jim, that's something we have talked about internally, and that's why we want to kind of test the process and see if we can make something like that happen, if you will.
Like from Bristol's perspective, we would, I agree with, Naugatuck, we would return the money. I would think we would return the money, to, NVCOG, and honestly, if subsequent audit ever occurred, NVCOG being our partner, we would work through the issue. We would work through the issue, together. Yeah.
And my guess is, we're not talking. You guys spend the money appropriately. You have checks, make sure, what's being spent is legitimate. I'm not sure if the audit's going to turn up any, huge irregularities or things that wouldn't have been allowed. So, it might be a possibility of doing something like that. And, if an audit shows, overspent, inappropriately by, it might only be a few $1,000s here or there. Right? So, Hugh, we can talk offline then to figure out how to do that, because we can get that information to you very quickly.
Yep, absolutely.
And before you leave, when are you retiring?
July 1st.
Well, I did, just on behalf of everybody, thank you for your time, and it's been great working with you. We've had a very good working relationship, and you've been very helpful for the region. So very much appreciated. So just want to take the time to thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I definitely agree with those comments, and always appreciated your help, Hugh, over the years.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, gentlemen.
And Bill's there too, or?
Yes, I believe Bill is on the line.
Yeah, because he's another one that's.
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, I'm another one destined for retirement on July 1st. At least that's the plan now. So.
Okay, well, again, Bill, the same comments. You've been a pleasure working with you, and I think we've gotten a lot done over the years, working together. So again, thank you.
Yes, yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you as well. And, I think I can speak for the LOTCIP team that we're very impressed by NVCOG's ability to utilize this program
Yes.
to its maximum benefit.
Absolutely.
You guys have delivered a lot of work and continue to do so. So we really appreciate that in helping make the program a success.
Mr. Chairman, through you. Ray, I just want to say, echo everyone's sentiments and thank Bill and Hugh. I've worked with them for many years and phenomenal individuals, have been extremely helpful to all of the communities that I have worked for, and can't thank you guys enough. So going to be missed.
Thank you, Sheila. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
My pleasure.
Vitalij, as well.
Yeah, thank you.
And I should just mention on that topic, I don't know how much, I think you're aware, Mark, but Mike Cherpak is going to be taking my role as of July 1st. And I don't know how well you know Mike, but Mike's very capable, very competent. So it's going to be Mike and Vitalij kind of running the LOTCIP show.
So he and I will have some heated discussions at times like you and I've had.
Absolutely.
But I will say, we've always kept it very professional and we've always listened to one another. And I think that's also a testament for, professionalism and, how we've been able to work together.
Mike worked on a couple of projects in Bristol. I think he's very confident and, look forward to working with him.
Good.
I guess just going down, what other questions did the region provide?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So the next question that we had has to do with the funding obligations. So the question states the NVCOG is expecting to have granted nearly our full LOTCIP allocation to projects and towns, likely during the fiscal year 24. What should we expect when this happens? If we are close but unable to fully fund the project within a fiscal year, does the project have to wait until the following year to move forward, or will the department allow for total obligations to go above total allocations for short times? Can larger projects be split into 2 years if necessary to keep them moving forward while maintaining the allocated budgets? So this question is, I would say, is very COG specific. Certainly, as Hugh and Bill mentioned, NVCOG has been sort of a champion of this program. And don't tell other COGs that we say this, but you guys been really delivering in a expeditious way. You've been expending all your funds, been over-programmed, and this is the desire. I mean, we want to see projects being built, and that's excellent. So NVCOG is over-programmed. What we use is our forecasting sheets, okay? And what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna share with you guys sort of our internal document on the screen, and hopefully you'll be able to see it. Do I have a way to share a screen? Do I have the capability?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's down at the bottom, Vitalij.
Yep, I can see that. And screen 1, share. Okay. Let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yep.
Okay, so what you're looking at right now is our sort of a cash flow summary for NVCOG. And if I try to zoom in, so make sure people can see it here. So looking at the overall program, starting from fiscal year 2014 through 2022, we have total funds that have been allocated to NVCOG is 68 million. Okay, so going down just to see what's been expended on projects and administration is 40 million. So that leaves us with balance of 27.9 million, nearly 28 million. So this is what we currently have in the bank for NVCOG to expand. Now, adding this nearly 28 million to the additional funding that will be available excuse me, to NVCOG coming this July. This is the beginning of state fiscal year 23. That's 8.7 million. So you're looking roughly at $37 million in the bank. So looking at all of the projects that we have with NVCOG in our system, let me share another screen up here. So this is another internal document that we develop and we use to track all of our project is, so all of these projects here, so these are all the projects that we have in NVCOG, and looking at approximately 31 projects. These projects up here that have not been awarded yet, up to, within the fiscal year 2023 is 36.2 million. So that kind of really falls within the range of what we have in the bank. That's including fiscal year 2023 up to the 2024. Okay, so we're expecting that you guys, NVCOG, have well over-programmed within the certain timeframes. For the next year and a half, we have sufficient funding to fund all the projects. Now, we know that some projects may have, when it comes to low bid, when it comes in, might be a little bit higher, might be a little bit lower. Some projects tend to maybe have schedules be moved due to delays for various reasons. So we'll recognize that. But we are yet to experience where we have to, in other words, look for money someplace else to be able to fund projects because we don't have enough funds in the program. Okay, so hopefully that kind of explains a little bit the forecasting in the future from the financial standpoint, the way we see NVCOG and the way things are sort of for us on the radar. But again, I think you guys have been champions of this program, and other COGs are looking, because every time we have a quarterly meeting, we provide information when it comes to the charts, how every COG performs, and other COGs looking at NVCOG, and they're thinking, yeah, we need to get going. So you guys have been doing a fantastic job. So
and I would just one quick question: the numbers that you're using for the cost estimate, does that include the 20% for contingencies and incidentals?
Yes, that includes everything that we have. Yeah.
Okay. Because that's what we do too. We try to add that in so we have a clearer picture.
Yeah, and I would just add to kind of color out the picture that this spreadsheet you're looking at is such an important tool for us internally, because it covers the 9 COGs across the state and every LOTCIP project we have, which is almost 300 at this point. And the reason I bring it up is we ask you guys each quarter for schedule and delivery information, the LOTCIP reporting back to us. And that information that you give us goes directly into this spreadsheet. So our costs are updated, but also, and almost more importantly, the project schedules are updated. And this spreadsheet looks out into the future of when projects are scheduled to be delivered, such that we can ensure that you have enough money in the bank to fund those projects. And in fact, we use this spreadsheet to base our bond requests for LOTCIP funds to the State Bond Commission into the future. So it's a really important tool, number one, for us, but the data you provide us through the quarterly reporting is just as essential, because as we all know, each quarter certain schedules slip. So while this spreadsheet is important, it's also only a snapshot in time, because next quarter, some of those dates are going to change. And if the project delivery rolls out into the future, not that we like to see that, but in one sense, it gives us somewhat of a cost relief that we're not going to have to pay a bill as we're approaching the over-programming level.
Yeah, and that's why we're bringing this up, because when we're doing the same thing, tracking the costs, and we're also including projects that we're calling pre-application. So it's not included in your spreadsheet because we haven't gone through the process of submitting the application, and you haven't provided that commitment to fund letter. So ours is going to be higher because we include projects that you don't. But again, it's just, we're seeing a possibility. And so we just want to, begin that discussion of what would happen if we hit a, deficit situation. So it's just something to keep on everybody's radar. We don't want to be surprised and, 24, and all of a sudden we have no money, and somebody's wanting to go out to build. So it's just something we want to keep everybody aware of.
Yeah, and these are very valid questions because we ask those questions internally as well on our state projects, or if you call federal projects. What happens if we have more projects that cost more than actually the money that we have? So we always trying to find a mechanism to fund the projects that are especially a priority for the department in the region. So but again, kind of going back to, as you can see, the beauty of this system and the program in general, LOTCIP, is that we can carry funds over from year to year, as opposed to prior to that, we had difficulties of scrambling and make sure we can obligate the projects. But that kind of alleviates some of that pressure and allows all of us work together, recognizing that there are delays, there are things happens in life that end up moving project, but we try to make sure that we deliver them as we promise. So anybody has any additional questions on comments on this specific question before I move on to the next one?
I don't see anybody, so if you can.
Okay. And I think the last question, written question that we've received, we can certainly discuss more if you guys have, has to do with the future funding allocation. Okay, so the question is, what progress has the department made discussing an increase in LOTCIP funding with legislature? What can NVCOG do to help advocate for a program budget that allows us to continue improving our local roads? So we've been having some internal discussions, not we, but actually our higher level staff of the agency, for the budgetary needs for state fiscal year 24 and 25. This summer, the department will be putting together sort of our biannual budget that's going to set an overall LOTCIP bonds level. DOT front office, they're well aware that all of the COGs, literally across the board, are looking for increase in budgetary level to match the federal urban funds. So as soon as this information becomes available to us, I'm sure you'll be communicated to COGs either through us or through other levels of our planning department. So a lot of those things are still in discussion, and it's kind of above our level to make any decisions or know what's happening, because they have to discussing it with knowing the state funding overall for the state. So we expect there'll be a level of communication coming down to COGs. But as far as what can NVCOGs do to help the program or for more funding, I think is just to continue to advocate with the legislative contingents for the success of the program. As you mentioned, we have now nearly 300 projects since the inception of the program, 8-9 years. And that's for the entire state, just within the LOTCIP group. And I think it speaks for the success of how much we have grown. We developed our process, and we refined, and we saw that some hiccups, and we made some adjustments, revisions. And, I think it's, to be able to advocate with legislative contingents for more funding, and, how can they provide funding to COGs. And I think that's probably one of the sort of, low-hanging fruit, if you will, to get additional funding for the program. So I think that's
one of the questions I had is maybe you can just touch on the right-of-way acquisition, process. And
so any specific questions when it comes to right-of-way? What do you refer to?
Just the process is, typically, it's been my, practice, I happen to be in Bristol, where if the DOT ever asks us, do you want to handle right-of-ways, or the DOT, I always say DOT, since the DOT has a very, very formal, process, as a practical matter, we can go out and negotiate, directly with property owners and acquire rights away. If I don't say this negatively, that doesn't, satisfy DOT criteria. I guess where does right-of-ways fit in with a, with respect to, to LOTCIP?
Sure. So we have two tracks when it comes to right-of-way acquisition with projects. One of them is when municipality decides to acquire right-of-way, and they may decide to either pay out of the town funds somehow as part of the design, or they may request a reimbursement later on from the LOTCIP parent project. So in this case, it'll be NVCOG. Well, the other one is the town or NVCOG may decide to ask DOT, maybe if it's a more of a complex acquisition, to acquire some of this right of way. And what we do is we establish an internal project, sort of a child project of a parent project for that specific, overall roadway improvement. And we have our right of way staff do the acquisitions. And yes, we do have a well-established process. But it may take a little bit longer because they have to follow certain requirements when it comes to acquisitions. So to answer your questions as far as the right-of-way, it can go either way, either by town or by the state, but we always encourage, and it's always an internal hiccup for all of our projects, is if right-of-way phase does not begin early enough, it's sort of a critical path for all the projects. It's two things. It's either right-of-way or permitting. If one of those things does not begin on time, it has a very high potential for delaying the projects. So if NVCOG is initiating projects, please initiate right-of-way phase early enough, either with acquiring by yourself or requesting the department to do so, because it ensures timely delivery of projects. So I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yes, ultimately, does the municipality have to follow DOT acquisition process manual for whom? Right.
So we have we have a sort of requirements outlined within lots of guidelines for the acquisitions, and they're all categories are mentioned in there, specifics. So that probably a good tool to start with as far as researching. I know that Bill Grant, he is well familiar with our process. Bill, I don't know do you want to mention something else to my comments on that?
Sure. Generally, the same process should be followed, whether the state is performing the acquisitions on behalf of the municipality or the municipality is performing them themselves. And ultimately, what we expect, at the end of the right-of-way process, if a municipality is performing the acquisitions, is a set of documents. And as Vitalij said, those are listed in the LOTCIP guidelines. And we accept those and review those as proof that the process was followed properly. And those of you that have received commitment to fund letters for your projects, you'll note that we always mention right away in that commitment to fund based on what we saw in the application, whether the municipality anticipates performing the acquisitions or the state, they anticipate the state to perform the acquisitions. And there's contact information in there for either case. So to echo Vitalij's point about getting started in that process early, certainly if you have any questions about how to proceed, reach out to the right-of-way contact person that's listed in that letter to make sure everything gets off started in the right direction. As Vitalij mentioned, a lot of times we get final design packages that either don't have the proper documentation or something wasn't followed properly, and ultimately it can delay the project advancing to construction.
I'd kind of like to add a little bit to that discussion as well. What I've seen recently, again, with this Rubber Avenue project is that the state is handling the right-of-way, but all throughout the right-of-way process, the borough and their designer has been in contact with right-of-way. They've been helping, coordinate meetings with the property owner. So it's sort of like almost like a hybrid situation. And I think it's been going very well. And I don't know if Jim, you want to add anything to that, but it seems like things have been moving along and sort of at a pretty good pace. And it seems like a good way to handle the right of way. If you have like if it was Vitalij said, a significant amount of, or something that's, if it's just minimal kind of, easements or something, maybe you don't need to go to the DOT, but certainly for the Rubber Avenue project, it seems to have worked well.
Yeah, the mayor's office and people in the town hall have connections with these business owners, and it's helped a lot to spur them to pay attention to the DOT documents and make sure that they don't just put them on a shelf and ignore them. So it's been helpful. Hopefully we're not pushing the DOT too hard.
Well, right-of-way process is very well outlined within DOT, and we, acquire a lot of property for projects for various situations, various conditions in the middle of the woods, businesses, property owners. Again, those are all legitimate acquisitions usually, and many kind of circumstances that they encounter. So they have well versed on type of requirements that are needed, documentation and timing, and they're a great resource to us. Internally, we refer to them for questions because they know the process very well, and they've been very helpful internally. And it's great to hear that, as Karen mentioning, it sounds like they've been very helpful with Borough of Naugatuck to acquire as well, and meet with property owners. So hopefully we're, if there are improvements that we can make, please send us our message our way. We're happy to discuss internally how we can help.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for DOT? Certainly appreciate them coming and talk about a project that quite frankly is very well used by the region and all the municipalities. Any other questions? Like that, once again, thanks for the DOT. Just moving on, presentation of Waterbury West Main Street study.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, great. I'm gonna try and share my screen here. Let's see. All right, let me know. Can you see what's up on the screen right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, well, good morning again. Mark Vertucci, I'm a project manager at Fuss & O'Neill, and I'm here this morning to talk about the West Main Street corridor study that we are in the process of wrapping up now. We're working on the final report. We've been working on it since early 2021. We've had a pretty extensive public involvement process. And, this project is really geared towards making West Main Street more of a complete street, a multimodal corridor. It's very, very auto-centric right now. These are the limits here, and you can kind of see why this road is kind of favored towards vehicles. It's a major connector between the Route 8 Expressway in the west, and then it proceeds into downtown Waterbury towards the green. So it's a major east-west connector, not only for vehicles but also for buses and transit. But over the years, it's really been designed, I'll say, overbuilt. It's very wide in spots, and there's more lanes, more capacity than is actually warranted for the traffic conditions. And you can see that here. This next slide. This is towards the middle of the corridor. You can see that the road is 7 lanes wide at one point there, and it may be hard to see the picture, but there's only couple of cars in that picture on a 7-lane wide road in the middle of the day. So this was our challenge. You know, we want to make this a street as opposed to a road, a higher speed, higher volume road that accommodates vehicles, and make this comfortable and safe for all road users, including pedestrians, bicyclists, transit riders, and in addition to motorists. So what we really looked at was how can we diet this road? And I'm showing this West Hartford example is one example that we modeled our project off of. This was a quarter study we did on New Park Avenue a couple years back. Similar situation, 4-lane road, auto-centric, and we went ahead and proposed recommendations to make this more of a complete street. So using the available road space more effectively to accommodate all users. So in this case, we looked at a center 2-way left turn lane and median, necking the travel lanes down from 4 to 2 and adding bike lanes and some nice street tree amenities. And incidentally, this project, when we finished the planning study, the town applied for a LOTCIP application and it was awarded, and they're currently designing these improvements. So that's what our goal is here on West Main Street as well. So I'm going to talk next about just some of the general recommendations that we came up with on the project. On the pedestrian side, we looked at crosswalks throughout the corridor. In many cases, some of the existing crosswalks were in rough shape, didn't meet ADA compliance. There's also some very long stretches of roadway where there are no crosswalks at all. So we looked at new locations for crosswalks and ways that we could shorten the crossings. Similar to what you're seeing in this picture here, where this edge of sidewalk is where the edge of road was. So what was done here is the curb was extended, grass was planted. It was greatly shortened the pedestrian crossing and kind of protected the parking lanes on the side. So it makes it safer for pedestrians to cross when they're crossing a shorter distance and they have a refuge island in the middle of the road. We looked at widening sidewalks, upgrading the ramps to meet ADA, and also in some instances adding in a crosswalk like this, you can add a pedestrian actuated crossing device. So adding a push button to the sign and flashing beacons on the sign, so that when a pedestrian intends to cross, they can push the button and people will get a flashing beacon, and it's safer for them for pedestrians to cross. Really highlights the crosswalk better for approaching motorists. On the bicycle side, really there's no accommodation at all on West Main Street today for bicyclists, but as I showed you in that picture, there's plenty of road width available. So you'll see in some of the concepts I'll show in a minute, we reallocated some of that curb-to-curb pavement space, taking travel lanes away and adding some bike lanes. There's also a portion of the road, that really wide section, where we narrowed the pavement so much that we had room for an off-track multi-use pathway, similar to what you're seeing here on Freight Street, which is the next road south of West Main Street. So the city, in the past few years, installed this facility there. So providing some upgraded bike facilities on West Main Street really marry into the improvements they were making, just to the south of this corridor as part of Tiger Grant fund that they had received. So vehicle recommendations, again, there's that picture with the 7-lane section. We looked at minimizing the dedicated vehicle space through road diet and traffic calming measures. So this is not only narrowing lane widths, narrowing roadway widths, in some cases removing travel lanes altogether. We added streetscape amenities and street trees, which really help to improve the pedestrian experience, but also give the roadway more of a village and urban feel, and that helps to promote traffic calming and lower speeds through the corridor. We looked at areas for installing medians and textured medians where possible. And there's a couple of intersections where there are some turn restrictions today that we removed them to provide better circulation. Access management was part of this study as well. This being a suburban urban area, we have, over the years, there's been a lot of development and curb cuts that have been placed without some very, good planning. So in some instances, like this intersection here at Willow and Meadow Street, you see there are curb cuts that are on top of the intersection, which is never a good thing for safety when you have added vehicle conflicts at an intersection. In other cases, there's developments that have 3-4 curb cuts. They really don't need that many. So we looked at ways that we could eliminate and consolidate curb cuts in some instances. On the parking side as well, there is on-street parking in portions of the corridor. We look to retain that in most cases, but not really focused on adding new parking facilities. The city has or is planning to construct some off-site facilities nearby. So really what we focused on the parking side was protecting the parking lanes with those curb extensions on either end, which double up as, reducing the pedestrian crossings as well, and providing wayfinding signs to the parking areas that do exist. And then I mentioned the placemaking recommendations, streetscape, other amenities, plantings, medians, making the pavement markings more consistent, and the green, Waterbury green is really a focal point of this project in the east end. We looked at ways of actually expanding the green and promoting more pedestrian activity in the vicinity of the green. And then on the transit side, I mentioned this is a major bus route. So we looked at ways we can improve the bus stop areas. So, a lot of them are just their signs saying bus stop here. So we looked at adding in some pull-off areas, signage, potentially some bus shelters. We added a dedicated eastbound bus lane near the green. A lot of the, pedestrian improvements I'm talking about, sidewalk improvements and ramp improvements, widening of sidewalks, that helps promote transit activity, and that it makes it easier and safer for pedestrians to get to the bus stops as well as wait for buses. Same deal with the improved crosswalks and the flashing beacons we're adding. So I'm going to show you a couple of the concept plans that we came up with. There's 8 or 9 plans there. I'm not going to show you all of them in the interest of time, but I'm going to just pick a few of them. This one here is West Main Street at Sperry Street. So this is east of Thomaston Avenue, if you're aware of, familiar with this roadway. Sperry Street today comes in at an angle, and there's a very wide northeast corner to this intersection, this curb line. It looks like it was almost designed like an off-ramp if you're coming, westbound and making a right turn. So this is an example of what I'm talking about in reducing pavement width and looking for opportunities to slow traffic and improve and shorten pedestrian crossing. So we showing an extension of the curb here in the northeast corner, addition of crosswalks, which you can see are much shorter than they would have been had we not extended the curb. And we're also showing and proposing an RRFB, a rectangular rapid flashing beacon with a pedestrian push button to cross at this crosswalk. This is a higher volume location, and there's an overpass nearby. And in order to cross pedestrians here, you really need to alert the driver in advance. And that flashing beacon will help. This is an important crosswalk because there's really nothing for a quarter mile in either direction from here for pedestrians to cross. So, it will help bring some attention to the crossing and, reduce the risk of someone just jaywalking and crossing the street, which is what they're doing today. You'll see here in this section also, the road it's 2 lanes wide here east of Sperry Street, but the travel lanes are 16 feet in each direction. So what we did here is we necked some curb extensions here, protected the parking lanes, and narrowed the actual travel lanes to 10 feet in each direction. And then we were able to add in 5-foot bike lanes. So the narrower travel lanes promote lower speed. We're able to use that excess travel lane space to accommodate bicyclists. Further down here, this is another example at Judd Street where we've narrowed pavement width by extending the streetscape out on both sides of the road, narrow the crosswalk here, and added an RRFB. This was a problematic location. There were a couple of pedestrian fatalities from pedestrians trying to cross the road here. So, we think shortening this crosswalk basically in half and providing the flashing beacon will help provide safer operations. And then further to the east here, this is in the middle of our corridor, Willow at Meadow Street. This is the beginning of that section I showed you earlier where the road is 7 lanes wide. And you can see what we've done here. The east-west through movements were offset. So what we did is we straightened them out and we eliminated a lot of the pavement space on the southern half of the road. Our capacity analysis or traffic counts that we performed indicated that we really don't need all that additional pavement space. We don't need the additional travel lanes. So we were able to reduce here and then add some nice green space on the south side of the road with a sidewalk and a 2-way cycle track. We've also, might be hard to see here, but we've proposed to close a few of the curb cuts that were coming in at this intersection. Both the development parcels on the northeast and southeast corners don't need all those curb cuts, and we did, through the public involvement process, speak with this property owner and who agreed to close one of his curb cuts. So that would be helpful there for access management, provide for safer operations, and lining these roads up as well help us to eliminate some of the existing left turn restrictions that exist at this intersection as well. And then, moving to the east, we carried that idea forward over towards the Waterbury Green. And here, this is a more substantial improvement. If you're familiar with this area, there's a monument that's kind of in the middle of the intersection here, and there's a convoluted kind of semi-traffic circle around it with several different approach lanes. It's almost like 2 mini intersections in one. So we were able to straighten this out, again, significantly reducing pavement area and bringing the northern part of West Main Street and the north side of the green in at a T intersection. So this plan, the intent is to focus the vehicular and bus traffic around the south side of the green. And the north side of the green, this would be a textured pavement and be more of a lower speed, pedestrian oriented roadway, that the city could potentially, close occasionally for, festivals or put street vendors up for concerts and have it a nice public place that could almost serve as an extension of the green. And the other thing this concept does is it enables us to actually extend the green around the monument. Today it's separated by a roadway width and vehicular traffic. So pedestrians can actually walk up to the monument and see it and read the plaque on it. Today it's pretty much isolated in a sea of pavement. So this did a couple of things here with this plan. And we extended that, continued. We looked at a couple options at this intersection, but that was the one we went with. And extended this idea east over to North and South Main Street, which is the kind of the terminus of our project. So that's kind of what we did here in a nutshell. You know, again, we're working on the final report now, and look to have that done in the next several weeks. And I think this will be a great planning study that the city can use to apply for future funding and actually get this thing built. And there's certainly the potential, the way we outline the recommendations into short-term and long-term, that you could break out portions of this project and potentially get them funded at in stages or through different funding sources. So yeah, with that, I'm happy to take any questions on this, but I think one of the intents of this is just to kind of show you for the member towns, kind of show you some of the pedestrian traffic calming, road diet type improvements that tools that you might be able to to utilize in your town centers, where you have more of a mix of vehicular and pedestrian and bicycle traffic.
I've got a question, if you may. A statement, then a question.
Sure.
It's a good thing you weren't trying to do this in the late 50s and early 60s, because there was always 30 to 40 buses around the green.
Right.
They dropped us off from high school and we had to manage all of them. The other serious question, are you lowering the street a little bit under the railroad trestle?
Yeah, I can go back to that.
Are you going to lower the street so that?
Oh,
I know
no.
the Freight Street one has the more
Yeah.
serious problems. You're going to lower that one just a bit so that you don't have trailer truck problems?
Yeah, so the DOT is actually in the process of designing and replacing that overpass.
Oh,
But we did talk to them. They were involved in the public involvement process, and I don't believe they're changing the elevation of that at
okay,
all.
thank you.
Yep.
It's good to me. Being a Waterbury, being a suburb of Prospect, it looks pretty good.
Any additional comments or questions?
I got a quick question just with the RRFBs. I believe those can be either solar or hardwired, is that correct? And if so, how well do the solar versions work? Do you have any experience with that, Mark?
Yeah, for the most part, most towns I've worked with are using the solar versions. It's a lot easier than having to trench and put conduits and go to the nearest utility pole and deal with utility companies. So the solar work fine, and I haven't heard of anyone having issues with power or service to them. They don't really take a lot of have a high electrical demand on these things with just a push button and the flashing beacon coming in occasionally. The solar is a bit more expensive up front with the installation, but it's not substantially more.
Do you can you provide maybe through NVCOG a couple locations where they do exist in other communities, the solar ones?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then just my comments before we move on. Certainly I support 100% road diets. To me, we get a lot of pushback in Bristol every time we go to take a local road, or to go from 2 lanes to 1 lane. But my motto is, if you can see from one intersection to another, honestly, the travel time isn't really predicated by the number of lanes you have on the road. I do think it's critical that at signalized intersections, you don't decrease the the level of service and maintain queues. But like just taking a road from 2 lanes to 1 lane, I don't believe impacts travel time.
Right.
Just to share the thought as project manager, I mean, basically,
the sense was, in particular for an urban downtown, travel time was the least of our concerns, and the primary focus was on enhancing, as Mark said, so eloquently, enhancing the pedestrian environment, generating potential for mixed use and urban development in the surrounding areas. So, you know, the other aspect to this corridor that's just important to understand is that essentially, to go back to your point, the most narrow portion of it has essentially a configuration of one moving lane in each direction. So there really isn't much point in having 7 lanes feeding into 2 lanes. You know, you don't really have that capacity from a engineering standpoint. You don't have that capacity throughout the corridor. So that drove us towards a much narrower profile for the widest sections.
Thanks for your report presentation. Any other questions? Just moving on, speed feedback signs.
Okay. Right, we can wait for the presentation to come back. But yeah, so we had I can't remember the presentation. Okay, so we have some speed feedback sign presentation. These are signs that basically post the speed limit and post a display showing what speed your vehicle is traveling. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Research was done in 2014 by the Federal Highway Administration to show that this can reduce travel speeds up to 5 miles an hour. However, these signs don't really work as a standalone. You need to utilize these signs with other traffic calming measures, such as road diets and basically everything you just heard in the Waterbury presentation. The T2 Center partnered with Connecticut DOT and created a program to install these signs in rural areas and rural communities. So if any of our municipalities here have not applied to the program, we encourage you to do so. I believe it's 1 or 2 signs per municipality. You can get them. So look into that if you have not.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I apologize. I think it was the 14th of April that we were supposed to be there. Our people got there very late, so I apologize to the Middlebury Public Works and whoever came down from DOT to, and we got 2 signs for Prospect.
Thank you. Now these are solar, correct?
They can also be solar or hardwired. It's kind of the same story with RFBs. You can put the solar panel on, generally no power issues, but if you hardwire it in, you have to find a utility pole, you have to trench it and do all the same thing.
I would say, not that, once again, not to get sidetracked and take more time, typically we have had a tough time like tapping an unmetered service into Eversource, for like these signs, even the crosswalks. Put a metered service, right off the bat, you need a control panel and and a meter. So by the time we're done with a metered service, it ends up costing us, like $7 grand. That's why, honestly, it would be good if solar actually did work, well, because unmetered service has been a challenge for us to get, from, Eversource, and then metered services cost a small fortune. It's not bad with a streetscape because typically our streetscape lighting, we do run a metered service. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I mean, we in Naugatuck just did an unmetered service for a street clock and really had no problems at all. I was expecting an issue for that, but what have you had problems with getting unmetered services for? Right.
Quite frankly, some lighting that's like not part of, unless it's directly associated with with the road. We have does Naugatuck own its lights?
We do now, but we didn't. We do now, and haven't had an issue. Although that's the only thing we've done other than signals and such.
Yeah, no. In general, we had a tough time getting unmetered service. We tried it. Some accessory lighting by a bridge. Quite frankly, I think we did look at a crosswalk at one time. And you just dealt directly with your regional correct?
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? Just moving on, a seasonal data collection, Rich?
Yeah, so just a quick reminder, as we get into summer, NVCOG staff will both be doing some of our regularly scheduled data collection, which will include pedestrian counts on sidewalks and on trails around the region, condition and utilization reports at some of the DOT parking lots, including the commuter lots and at rail stations. But we are also available to do data collection for the municipalities. We've got the radar traffic counters that'll do a full week's worth of volume as well as speed and direction. And then we have the staff availability to do pedestrian and cyclist counts. So please let us know if you have any needs. And of course, you'll see us around doing some of that data collection over the summer.
And then I forgot the name of it, but you still have that software.
Streetlight data.
Streetlight
We do,
data,
yes.
where you,
Yep.
in effect, tap people's phones, so know where they're going. and
That's
coming
right.
from.
It is unfortunately exactly as creepy as it sounds, but it does a great job.
You just count the phones, you don't tap them, come on.
No, it's great though, because it does give us the ability to do comparisons between years, as well as get full annual averages and turning movement counts without having to have somebody stand out there for 2 hours.
No, honestly, I think it's a very valuable, data, and it's, it comes in handy. We've even looked at it for, quite frankly, like traffic, I think, one time you helped us out with like traffic calming measures. Where do people really, is it truly a cut through, or, is it really the local? So I think it's invaluable information and that is a good service that NVCOG, provides.
And I do want to say too, Rich and Christian Meyer before Rich, created some innovative ways of using streetlight, because it is you can really zoom in and identify where you want to put what they call gates, and you can really pinpoint where people are coming to and going from. And I think like you said, that your case with the cut through, it was pretty clear which people were starting in on that street and which ones are just cutting through. So it can really provide you some, and like I said, we've gotten pretty good at using the data in ways it probably wasn't intended.
To just add to what Mark's saying, I mean, we have that and we pay for it. So beyond your request, if other towns want to do any type of planning or evaluation of roadway investment, roadway modification, et cetera, just talk to us, because we really are eager to help you and to share in the planning process with that data resource. Even beyond that, if your economic development department is looking for some further information about origins and destinations, or traffic volume, that will inform outside investment in the region, we definitely can support that as well.
And from my perspective, I have a very boring life, so anybody can tap my phone anytime.
That's how we found out.
Just moving on, environmental, Aaron, I don't know if
Aaron's not here, he's on vacation. Christine, you have anything for him, or?
Sure, yeah. So thanks. My name is Christine. I'm an environmental planner, and I'll be just taking over for Aaron for this quick update. We have 3 events we'd like to go over. The first one is our Environmental Sustainability Forum on MS4 compliance. So Rich, if you could kindly go to the next slide. The Environmental Sustainability Forums are a new quarterly series that we're starting. They're open to everyone, municipal staff, but also community members. Our first one was about MS4, which is the notoriously complicated municipal separate stormwater system permit. So I think it went really great. We had some excellent speakers there from DEEP, from CLEAR, which is the Center for Land Use Education and Research that UConn has, and also from the city of New Haven. So there is a recording. Rich has indicated that this presentation will be sent out to you afterwards, so you'll all have the link to it. highly recommend just taking a look at it if you haven't seen it yet. The next thing I'd like to go over is the composter sale. So we did this last year and it was very successful. This compost bin and rain barrel sale will take place on May 21st. The way it works is that you order it ahead of time online. So you can place your orders up until May 19th on nvcog.ct.gov/composter. It is open to everyone in the region. These bins and barrels are at wholesale rates, so it's a great way for residents to get a little bit environmentally friendly. And pickup is going to be on May 21st. It's going to be from 9 to 11 at the Seymour Community Center / Senior Center. And then from 1 to 3, it's at Bethlehem Fire Department. So we have seen actually a great response from all the towns advertising it. It's on a bunch of different websites and on social media. Please continue to boost it. We've already had 50 units ordered and we still have almost a month to go. So thank you so much and please continue to promote this to your residents. And one more update has to do with our Soul Smart program. As a reminder, Soul Smart is it's a nationally funded program that is a little bit like Sustainable CT in that you will receive a designation in order for performing certain actions. It's for both towns and regions. NVCOG is applying as a region to try to make the whole region more friendly for solar development. So a couple of the requirements are to provide some trainings. So these will be online trainings on solar PV. The first one is about planning, zoning, and development. And the second one is on inspection and permitting. So the first one takes place June 1st at 10 a.m. Again, entirely online, and you can register for it using the links here. And the second one takes place on June 8th at 10 a.m. So I highly recommend it for all municipal staff. It's great to get a refresher, and we have some really good speakers lined up for that as well. So any questions on those 3 events? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the information. Just moving on, emergency management update.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I would like to do is introduce you to Paul Gibb. He's Special Projects Coordinator for REPT or DEMHS Region 5. He's going to be talking about a Public Works mutual aid plan. Paul, take it away. Paul, you might be on mute.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Joanna. Good morning, everybody. As Joanna said, I'm Paul Gibb. I work as a consultant for the Northwest Hills Council of Governments and the Region 5 REPT, the Regional Emergency Planning Team, which consists of the 43 chief executive officers that comprise DEMHS Region 5. So we're working on developing a mutual aid plan for the public works community here in Region 5. It's not done yet. We're working towards the point where we'll have a draft to circulate to everybody for review, but we're not quite there yet. This project actually came out of the storms of 2018. I'm sure you all remember those. A number of towns in the NVCOG area were affected by those storms. We kind of did a study of the response to those storms and noted that in the public works community, there really was not a formal plan for providing mutual aid, similar to what they have, for instance, in the fire service, where there's a formal written mutual aid plan that they use to mobilize resources, not just in Region 5, but statewide. And after the storms in 2018, the fire service used that plan to bring in resources from something like 74 different fire departments around the state to assist in Brookfield, where they were very hard hit. So the feeling was in the RESF 3 subcommittee of the REPT, that's the Public Works subcommittee of the REPT, that maybe we should try to develop something like that for the public works community here in Region 5. So the first thing that the RESF 3 did was to establish a public works advisory committee. And this was a committee of public works directors, highway supervisors here in Region 5. And the idea would be that they would guide the development of this mutual aid plan. I think we have about 7 or 8 people, maybe 9 or so on that committee. I think I saw Jerry Lukowski was on this meeting. Jerry is a member of that committee, so he's well versed in what I'm talking about here today. So the first thing that the committee did was to try to define what the mission of the mutual aid plan would be. And it was decided that at least for now, we may expand this in the future at some point, but at least for now, the mission of the mutual aid plan would be to help a stricken municipality get its roads open as quickly as possible. It's not necessarily to go in there and pick up debris and haul it away to a disposal site. You know, if towns want to offer to provide that kind of assistance later on, that's fine. That's up to each individual town to decide if they want to do that. But during the emergency phase, we felt it was important to develop a capability to get in there and at least help a municipality get its roads opened as soon as possible. Cut up those trees, get them shoved over to the right of way. Now, I know some of you are probably already thinking in your mind, well, yeah, what about Eversource? Because they're, you got to have them involved in this. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But that was decided upon as the primary mission of this plan. So with that mission defined, we then turn to trying to define the resources that would be needed to accomplish this mission. And what the advisory committee came up with was a formation of a road clearance task force. This would be a self-contained task force that would be mobilized and dispatched by one town to go assist in another. And can you all see that slide on the screen there? It's on my screen, Joanna. Is everybody seeing that? Okay. So this is what the a road clearance task force would consist of here in Region 5. You got a 4-man crew, including a leader, a pickup truck, crew cab if possible, a piece of heavy equipment, either a backhoe or, if possible, a loader. Either one of those, though, would be sufficient for the mission. A number of chainsaws, for at least 4 chainsaws. And, if you're going to be trailering your heavy equipment, obviously you're going to need a mover like a dump truck and a trailer to move it with. So it was decided that that would be what we would define as a standard road clearance task force here in Region 5. So having defined the mission for the plan and the basic resources and personnel needed to accomplish that mission, we set about scheduling meetings with the towns in Region 5 to discuss their participation and whether or not they could possibly provide a full road clearance task force or whether they could not. And if they could not, what could they provide? I've met with or corresponded with at least 35 of the 43 municipalities here in Region 5 so far. And to date, we have identified 25 task forces, road clearance task forces that can be provided by our municipalities in Region 5, as well as 11 chainsaw teams. Now, the chainsaw teams are coming basically from the towns that are very small towns. They tend to be up in the northern part of Region 5. They only have a 4-man work crew for their entire public works department. So fielding a full task force is really not feasible for a lot of those towns, but a number of them have agreed that they would provide at least a chainsaw team, which would consist of, a 2-man crew and a pickup truck and a chainsaw. And if they wanted to bring a chipper along too, that'd be fine. Chipping's not seen as being a big part of this mission. That's more of a recovery thing, but it could be that in certain locations, a certain amount of chipping may need to be done to open up sight lines and that kind of thing. So bringing a chipper along with the chainsaw team is encouraged if they can do that. So basically how the plan would work is this. We had an event like 2018 with a downburst, a tornado, F1 tornado or something like that. And we've got roads closed all over the place with trees and wires down in a number of locations. I think in the town of New Fairfield,
after the 2018 storms. They had a map posted in their EOC after the storm, and they had roads closed in 83 locations in their town. And I'm not talking about just, a single tree down either. I mean, we're talking, 20 trees down in a space of, 100 yards or so where that downburst really hit. So a lot of road closures. So after a town was stricken by an event like that, the plan encourages the town to then take some time to assess what has happened, to spend like the rest of that day, that first day, just getting a good feel for where the roads are closed. How many locations do you have road closures? And are there wires involved in these locations, or are there not? So before requesting mutual aid, to try to put together some sort of an assessment of just how bad things are in your municipality. And then to consult with Eversource to see, well, okay, how many make safe crews are you guys going to be able to have available for us here tomorrow or the next day? And because it doesn't make sense to dispatch mutual aid if Eversource isn't going to be able to be there to work with the crews to make the environment safe. So we've got to kind of gauge mutual aid in accordance with what Eversource's presence is going to be in the municipality. So this mutual aid then would be provided under the terms of the Interstate Mutual Aid Compact, which is in Title 28, state statute. And under Title 28, the CEO of a stricken municipality needs to declare a local state of emergency and then request resources, mutual aid resources of other CEOs in the municipality. And what we're going to do is funnel that request through the DEMHS Region 5 office, just like we do for every other kind of request for assistance. You need mutual aid. Say you've done your assessment. You've talked with Eversource. Eversource says I'll have three crews available tomorrow to assist with make safe operations. And you reach out to other municipalities through the DEMHS Region 5 office looking for at least three road clearance task forces for mutual aid. That request is then taken by the DEMHS Region 5 office and put out to all the municipalities in Region 5. And we are then able to identify which municipalities will be able to assist, which municipalities may not be able to assist because they themselves have been hit by the same storm. And that's going to happen. There are going to be some municipalities that just aren't able to provide any kind of help at all because they themselves have been affected. And then those resources that are available would be requested to report to a pre-designated staging area in the stricken town. And, we'll go from there. The work would be assigned by a staging area supervisor, so the mutual aid crews would know where to go for their assignments. So we hope to roll this plan out, at least a draft of it, later this month. We're trying to get some 800 megahertz radios to distribute to at least some of the municipalities that have the ability to trailer their equipment and haul it distances. Not all towns have that ability. About 2/3 of the towns I've spoken with can actually trailer their heavy equipment. Some cannot. They have to drive it over the road. So at least for the towns that can, we'll start by distributing these 800 megahertz portable radios, which operate on the state's land mobile radio network, very robust radio network. And they'll have their own separate talk group for public works directors on that system. But we'll start by distributing these radios to the municipalities that can trailer their equipment. And then we'll try to fill in behind that and get radios for the other municipalities as we go through more Homeland Security grant cycles, which is the funds that are being used to purchase these radios. So as I said, hopefully we'll have a draft out later this month or early June at the latest. We wanted to try to hold a meeting of all the public works directors, and we may yet do that. But we're just at that meeting, we wanted to be able to distribute the radios and provide some training on the radios. But we're running into delays in getting cash advances from Emergency Management and Homeland Security. We've had requests for our cash advances in for a couple of months and we haven't gotten them yet. The COG, Northwest Hills COG is working with them to try to get the money flowing. And as soon as we get that money, we'll issue a purchase order to try to get these radios. And when we get them, then I think, we'll try to hold a meeting of all the public works directors to discuss the plan, any changes that we might need to make in it, and distribute the radios and provide some training. So that's the other thing that someone asked me to talk about was some towns had raised the possibility of there being union issues, changes in working conditions, and would it be a violation of a union contract to ask people to work outside of their town. I'm also the emergency management director for the town of Litchfield. I talked with our public works director about this, Raz Alexi, and he was of the opinion that now it would not constitute a change in working conditions, and he didn't think that there would be any pushback by the guys about being asked to do this. That for the most part, they're anxious to help out in an emergency. A lot of the public works guys are also volunteer firefighters. They're just by nature inclined to, drop what they're doing and go help in an emergency. So I don't really see that as an issue. But if there are any concerns about that, you can always talk with the labor attorney that your town uses to negotiate union contracts and interpret it. Union contract language to see if there would be any problems. The only time I could see a problem regarding labor issues is if after the emergency phase is over, after all the roads are opened up and power's back on and so forth, mutual aid was used to start hauling debris away, to pick it up and haul it away, and the employees of the stricken town might say that, well, they're using mutual aid to circumvent the payment of overtime or something like that, and then maybe an issue arises. I don't know. I just can't talk, authoritatively about how this might all shake out in terms of the union contracts. But that's where we are. We've made the project, obviously, due to the pandemic, it got put on back burner for a better part of a year during COVID, and then again with the Omicron surge. But I think we're making good progress, and hopefully this is implemented. Definitely implemented this storm season, this summer season at some point, and I hope for sooner rather than later. So that's about all I have, Joanna. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Well, thanks a lot, Paul. And throw it back to the chair for questions.
Yes, I just, especially for emergency, under emergency conditions, and quite frankly, given the size and the geographic, expanse of NVCOG, I think it even makes assistance in emergency management issues even, more feasible. If one town gets hit, it's tough to have sometimes mutual aid for the adjacent towns, since typically they're affected. I do think that, the region is, big enough that that probably, won't happen on, at least, all events. So even on an informal basis, certainly I can't speak for the city of Bristol completely, but I would say that, I would support, emergency, aid to other municipalities, and under normal circumstances, certainly if we're not affected, we have the resources to assist. I think it, once again, I think it's a little bit different than some of the challenges associated with, not to jump the decks topic, but like shared services and equipment. I think some of the challenges associated with shared equipment kind of go away, recognizing that there's an emergency and it's all hands on on deck. So I think it's a good program that the region is implementing.
Thank you. Our hope is that this will catch on and it'll be implemented in some form across the other DEMHS regions in the future, so that we have truly a statewide mutual aid plan, but we'll see how that goes.
All Bob Chaff, if I ask you a question.
Sure.
I think I might have been a little lax in this. If you could give me a call at town hall, Although the last 2 new trucks we bought, I did get letters from Naugatuck and Bethany, and we installed radios with that have their frequency, plus several area fire departments also. I've been involved with Prospect Fire for 57 years. So I'm also the Director of Public Works in Prospect. If you give me a call, I'd like to get my assistant and spend some time with you. I don't think you have contacted yet.
Very good. I'll give you a call later today, Bob.
All right, 758-4461.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in and remind people that this at this point, it only involves 13 of the 19 NVCOG towns. For those people who are in Region 2 and Bristol Region 3, you know, I offhand, I can't tell you what the agreements are, but like Paul was saying, hopefully this will be a model for across the state.
I guess what I'm saying, even absent this, formal, framework, certainly if anything was to happen over the summertime, if there's lines of communication through NVCOG, if something happened and Bristol can assist, we would make every effort to do so.
Yep. It's interesting. We looked at mutual aid after 2018, and whether you're talking about the fire service or whether you were talking about public works, 75% of the mutual aid that was received came from outside Region 5. So even with the existence of this plan in Region 5, it's highly possible that, we are even probable that we will be looking beyond Region 5 for mutual aid.
Any other questions or comments? Just moving on then, shared services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk very briefly, the hour is getting late, about a couple of things I've spoken before, TTAC and our CEOs about previously. We have commitment from 7 towns to submit applications on behalf of DEP's Sustainable Materials Management Grant Program. The 7 towns are Bristol, Middlebury, Bethlehem, Woodbury, Wolcott, Ansonia, and Shelton. Seymour may also be submitting an application. As well as NVCOG has put in an application to conduct education and outreach as part of this program. The program has a $5 million pot statewide. Our ask, alone right now is more than $1 million. In the budget that's been passed in the last 48 hours, the legislature appears to have approved a funding mechanism for additional grants going forward in the next fiscal year. The primary focus of these pilot programs is food and organic separation and unit-based pricing. It can be tailored to your municipality's specific needs. They're really designed to see if we can adopt policies that will help reduce tip fees. This is something that's been a very strong concern of numerous mayors and first selectmen in our region. We have, basically, it can be tailored to meet your needs in the ways that we have several transfer station programs, applications for. We have applications for a citywide curbside collection, a specific route of curbside collection, as well as school collection and glass recycling. DEP really wants to give these grants ahead, out going forward. We've had great feedback from DEP, from the commissioner on down. They see this COG as a leader in regional efforts. So anyone who has interest in any of this programming, please contact myself or Christine O'Neill. We'd be happy to work with you in the months ahead to get whatever would help your municipality evaluate ways to reduce tip fees through these programs. We'd be happy to work with you. And something that was mentioned when Christine outlined the Environmental Sustainability Forum that took place last month. If you weren't in the room, I encourage you to click on the link that was noted with what Rich Donovan's going to be sending out. It was a good forum. I've got some great questions and some great material provided by experts. But MS4 is something that our municipalities have been challenged with in compliance with. We have several regional performance incentive program grant applications that we're reviewing internally right now. One of them is to provide assistance to your municipalities for MS4 compliance. We'd be happy to take your feedback on how we can help you comply. If you weren't part of the forum, please take a look at the link and then contact myself, Christine, or Aaron Boudris. We'd be happy to help you out in that regard, and happy to take any questions or anything else, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that update. Certainly after the meeting, I'll talk to you about some Bristol specific issues associated with the grant, all, positive and manageable, but any other questions or comments from any members?
Thank you. We appreciate your support, Ray, as well as I believe Steve Mance was on the call and Sheila was on the call at some point too, and helping with those grants. We really appreciate the support from the local staff.
Okay. The next item, if there's no other business to come before the TTAC, next item is a motion to adjourn.
But before you do that, just one brief information. We have been working on, for the Naugatuck River Greenway Trail, a operations and maintenance plan or a report that is, we'll send that out to everybody. It's basically just best practices on if you have a trail in your town, rules, regulations, how to maintain, how to operate, things like that. Just some ideas to sort of think about. So we'll be sending that out. The NRG steering committee is going to look at it in their meeting next week, I think.
Yes. Thanks.
And then our board will look at it at some point But I just, it's in current, we released it as a draft last month, and we'll send it out just for your information as well. Now you can enjoy.
Any other comments or questions? Any motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Watertown.
Yes.
Second.
Second.
Second from Naugatuck, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks, everybody.